Good morning from the East Coast Main Line, speeding north right now on LNER between London, King's Cross and York. I'm heading north towards Darlington, and the title of this video, When Was Britain's First Railway, is the question which I'm going to answer. But I'm going to ask it to you right now. If I were to say to you, when do you think Britain's first railway was? It's a question I ask because in the year 2025, as we are now, we are celebrating Railway 200. So the answer should be 1825. But last week on text, I sent a message to about 30 of my railway loving friends and asked them that same question and collated their answers. And what I got back were people saying, Stockton Darlington, Stockton Darlington. Surely it was the Stockton and Darlington. I want to say it's the Stockton and Darlington, but hang on, I have a suspicion that it's the Manchester to Liverpool. Is it that? But the Liverpool and Manchester was the first scheduled railway. If this was a pub quiz, I'd put Stockton and Darlington. You've asked me this before, isn't it the Oyster Mouth in Wales, 1810-ish? It depends on your definition. Some say it's the Crab and Winkle, and some say it's the Stockton and Darlington. It's the Stockton and Darlington. But I dislike this topic because some people will then argue that the Stockton and Darlington wasn't purpose-built for passengers, so then it has to be the Liverpool and Manchester. My favourite is, I think the QI Klaxon answer would be the Stockton and Darlington, but it's actually the Manchester and Liverpool, isn't it? And finally, the wisest answer I got, it depends on what the definition of a passenger railway is. I think the general public would understand a passenger railway to be what we know now, i.e. purpose-built coaches pulled by a locomotive running on its own power with steel wheels on metal rails. For this reason, I would probably say the Liverpool and Manchester, but I think you're trying to get me to say the Stockton and Darlington. And in a way, I'm going to give you the spoiler, the answer, because the answer to the question is, well, it depends on what your definition of the question is. It depends how you interpret it. But to understand that interpretation, I'm heading north through York to Darlington to meet a friend from the National Railway Museum. We're going to go to Locomotion, part of the NRM Museum, and answer, when was Britain's first railway?
The forerunner of the railway was to be found mainly in association with the mining industry, when mining carts were used below ground for transportation. They initially used wooden rails and were steered by a guide pin between the rails. The first of these railways appeared in Cumbria mines in the 1560s, pushed by hand, followed by the first horse-drawn railways above ground from around 1600. Then, in London and the South East, there was the Surrey Iron Railway, often credited as the first public railway. It was a horse-drawn narrow-gauge plateway that linked Wandsworth and Croydon via Mitcham. That opened in 1802 and 1803 and was used to transport coal, corn and seeds. Around the same time, in 1801, Richard Trevithick invents the high-pressure steam engine called Puffing Devil, which was later destroyed in an accident. In 1802, he built a steam engine at Penydarren Ironworks that drives a hammer in the works. Trevithick experiments with fitting the engine with wheels to run on the Merthyr tramroad.
To take the history further, we go to 1807, and that was to Swansea when the Swansea and Mumbles Railway opened to fare-paying passengers. So arguably, first fare-paying passenger railway, but it was horse-drawn carriages on rails.
And 5 years later, in 1812, the Kilmarnock and Troon Railway in Ayrshire, Scotland opened, and although that was designed to carry coal, it worked like a toll road in that anyone could pay the toll to use the railway, including to carry passengers in horse-drawn carriages. And some of those carriages even had names.
But the first commercially successful steam locomotives were operating at the Middleton Railway in 1812. These colliery locomotives played a vital role in transporting coal around Leeds, turning it into a thriving industrial city at the heart of the Industrial Revolution. So we're curving off now. I've made it to Darlington and I'm now on the two-car Class 156 train, heading to Shildon, which is where Locomotion, the Railway Museum is, and is where the Stockton and Darlington Railway opened, the home of the first steam-hauled passenger train on a public railway. Except steam locomotives were only used for passengers on the first opening day. After that, they were just used for freight. It wasn't until 1831 that a steam locomotive pulled passengers again.
So whilst the Stockton and Darlington were using horses to haul their passengers after the first day, steam locomotive development continued elsewhere. And it was 4 years later, in 1829, that the Rainhill trials took place to prove that steam locos should be used for the newly built Liverpool to Manchester Railway. The most famous engine there on the day is the one you've probably heard of, the Rocket, and the Liverpool and Manchester opened in 1830 with double track and is often seen as the first intercity railway, even though Liverpool and Manchester at the time weren't cities. But the railway had stations with ticket offices, clocks, waiting rooms, and it felt like a proper railway that you know now. But also in the same year, in 1830, the Canterbury and Whitstable Railway opened, nicknamed the Crab and Winkle. They were cable-hauled with steam engines, and they were the first railway company ever to offer a season ticket. And following on from that, it was 7 years later that you could truly say that railway mania had started with the opening of the London and Birmingham in 1837, and railways were very much then popping up all over Britain and all over the world. So I'm at Locomotion, that's the NRM in Shildon, where I catch up with my friend Chris and we discuss the answer to this question.
How you doing? Morning.
Hello, good morning.
Okay, we've been planning this for a while because I came to you back last year almost saying, got this great idea for a video to answer this question, when was the first railway? And as we've already seen, I mean, the answer is it depends upon how you define a railway.
Yeah, it's complicated and it's nuanced, but it's really interesting.
But the answer really is, otherwise Railway 200 wouldn't be celebrating this in 2025. It is the Stockton and Darlington, although some people still see the Liverpool and Manchester, right?
There's nuance, yeah. There's nuance, yeah. Like, so if you want to say first railway in Britain of any kind at all, then I'd say the mines at Coldbeck in 1560.
Back in the 16th century, sure.
Yeah,
and then you had the Swansea and Mumbles.
Yeah, so
sure.
Swansea and Mumbles is first passenger railway, but it's just using horses.
Okay.
So it's a railway that's carrying passengers. It's just, purpose-built carriages and things, but they're horses carrying them, not steam locomotives.
But there was so much importance here on the Stockton and Darlington. Like, it's seen as a big historic. It's a what's the word? It's a catalyst. It's a major point in the railway's history, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. It's so important for setting George Stephenson's reputation. Stockton Darlington proves his capability of what he's able to do.
Now, a really funny thing, what you might not know about Chris, is that you've been on, what's that quiz show you've been on?
Only Connect.
You have been on an episode of Only Connect, and one of my favourite responses in my list of answers from my friends this morning, someone mentioned the QI quiz, and someone else said if this was like a pub quiz. So if you were on Only Connect, and I haven't warned Chris I was going to ask him this, and it came up, so when was the first railway? You would say Stockton and Darlington, wouldn't you? Is that the Only Connect answer?
I think Only Connect would be sensible enough not to ask that question.
What? Because so many people give different answers to it?
Yeah, because it all depends on definition and what you consider. Like, what do you define as a railway? Some academics define a railway as a track that guides a vehicle that travels upon it. Which allows you to include things like maglev, but also includes things like the Diolkos in Greece from 600 BCE.
So I'm going to say Stockton and Darlington. Railway 200 for 2025 is saying from 1825 is Stockton and Darlington. We're here at Locomotion, which is the NRM's branch up in Shildon, which is where we are today.
Yes.
Do you know some of the events that are going on for Railway 200 this year? Can you tell us from an NRM point of view what's happening?
We've got so much going on. We have a new exhibition called Railway First that I've curated, which is looking at first events that have happened over the last 200 years of railways that were the first of things.
I can come in with a couple. I mean, I know that there's this train that's going to go around.
Yes.
That's going to go around the country.
Yeah, we've got the Inspiration train that's going around. That's an exhibition train, stopping in many different places. It's also visiting the NRM in York in August, at the end of August, and it'll be here at Locomotion for the actual anniversary itself.
Which is what date? Sorry.
So that's here from the 20th of September to the 1st of October, and there's lots going on around that weekend.
I'm going to pin you down. Imagine again, it's a quiz show. I'm going to pin you down on an exact date. What date did the Stockton and Darlington run?
27th of September, 1825.
Okay, you've scored 5 points.
Brilliant.
Or whatever, however Only Connect scored. Well done. Twisted flax. Well done. Okay. And there's also there's 3 days in August. The greatest event, is that true?
The greatest gathering that's taking place in Derby. There's a lot of other things going on in this local area as well, including a run of the replica of Locomotion on the main line out of Shildon.
That's amazing.
Over the weekend as well.
That's amazing. That's going to be amazing.
That will be amazing.
That's going to be utterly amazing. Okay. All right. And right now we're going to have a quick look around Locomotion because I'm here and it's just cool with all the trains, so many trains. And you want to take me down to Hyington, is that right?
Yeah, we're going to Hyington.
Which you believe is
amongst the first stations in the world.
But you
Possibly.
But you were telling me it was. The joke is, because it's me, it's also the least used something.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah. It's the least used station of the Stockton Darlington Railway.
Is that true? Or are you just pandering to my...
Oh no, it is
least
true.
used in
I've
it?
got
Okay.
stats. I've got many stats.
I have seen his spreadsheet. Okay. Chris, thank you.
All right.
The answer is the Stockton and Darlington, unless you want to answer it with something else.
Yes.
Is that the answer?
Yeah.
Are we leaving it as ambiguous?
I think, yeah. It depends on your question.
It depends on how you define the question. Thank you, Chris.
All right.
So Chris and I take a trip, but not on this pacer train, thankfully, which has been preserved at the NRM. By the way, they have their own YouTube channel, which you'd absolutely love, full of railway goodness, so do have a look. There's a link in the description. And then we get to Hyington Station, that's on the original route of the Stockton and Darlington. It was here on the 16th of September in 1825 that the line's first locomotive, called Locomotion, was put onto the tracks for its first test run. Robert Stephenson had built it at his works in Newcastle and then disassembled it, brought it up the Great North Road to the station where it was assembled again and put onto the tracks. And after testing for over a week, the railway opened to passengers on the 27th of September in 1825. And originally there was no actual station as you'd know it now. Passengers were just picked up and dropped off at convenient places along the line. But by 2 years later, in 1827, the company built an agent's office and a tavern here, the buildings of which are still here today besides the level crossing. And this makes them the oldest surviving buildings at any operational station in Britain, even though they're not in use today. Hyington is therefore a great early prototype concept of what a station is and does today, and very much part of the Stockton and Darlington Railway, now 200 years old in 2025.
So I'm back at the splendid Darlington where I was this morning waiting for my train home. My thanks to Chris and everyone at Shildon and the NRM today. I've had a magnificent day. Stockton and Darlington is the answer, unless you think otherwise, in which case put it in the comments below. But 1825 to 2025, the Stockton and Darlington Railway, birthplace of the modern railway, is the phrase that's being used, and there are loads of Railway 200 events taking place this year. So thanks again, I've had a great day. Leave me a comment below. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.